And I think one of the things we realized, which I hadn't appreciated, that in the UK it's taken hundreds of years to get to where you have a
This
lovely.
this is one of the Afghan hounds.
Oh, look. Hello. I'm really pleased to be speaking to Faiysal Alikhan and Bertie Alexander, who have amazingly reignited the Peshawar Vale Hunt in Pakistan. I thought it would be fascinating to hear the history of how it all came about and how it's coming together now.
I first got exposed to hunting when beagling at Oxford with the university pack. And I like the intergenerational aspect of the field, how it's something that the family can do together. And it was something I wanted to try and take back and replicate in Pakistan again, because we did have a hunt there, as you said, but it was no longer functioning. And I thought if we could get that going there again, we could potentially, have families being able to do that again and have that intergenerational connection, which we somewhat lost in our countryside sporting, which had become much more sort of, male oriented. And so initially the idea was to have beagles that came out, because we wanted to sort of connect them with schools, get people started younger, and then transition on to foxhounds. But then the way it all, as these things are, you can see one thing and it ends up being another. And the way it all came about eventually was that we had, it was from the foxhound sort of community that there was more of an interest. It was a difficult ask because people were hesitant for, sort of initiating and sending hounds so far away to this project. But finally we were able to do so. And the first gentleman who came out, his name was William. And as a tradition, we've said that all who've come subsequently have all been Williams. And so Bertie was christened as William the Fourth.
Right.
When he came out, and they all, I think, had very different experiences. Everyone who comes out is sort of acting as an ambassador, for the UK countryside community. And that means in every way, the way that they come across and how they're interacting and how they participate in some of the local sports. So he started tent pegging. I mean, it wasn't something with some of the people building that countryside credential is, how you can ride, how you can get stuck in. So I think all of those things really help with building those countryside credentials of people coming out, particularly with Bertie, and then also garnering the interest of younger people in Pakistan who may not be familiar with, the ins and outs of hunting and what all goes into it. And I think one of the things we realized, which I hadn't appreciated, that in the UK it's taken hundreds of years to get to where you have with hunt countries and the community and the support and all the things that go with it. One really only appreciates it when you're sort of looking at it from scratch, and you suddenly realize that the things that you'd find obvious, like the bakers who are supporting by giving you things, or farmers calling you up with lambs that have died, or cattle. I mean, all of that has to happen from scratch, or the community that's around you. So that's been very interesting sort of journey. And it's been very helpful sort of building these two bridges between the two. And it's also been really helpful because a couple of years into this, my girls, who are quite involved with the hunts and with the hounds and everyone coming out, when they've come here to boarding school there at Hanford, it was almost like an instant link for them, that they suddenly come here all the way out to Dorset. But because of that being a common link, all of a sudden you're sort of integrated, welcomed, and that relationship evolves. And I think about it now and I say, that would never have been able to happen if it wasn't for the countryside community on both sides being so open and welcoming. And so you really see all that goes into what hunting is really all about, which is almost a very small percentage of the actual going out and all the other things that go along with it.
So the packs that you have taken out there, how's the breeding gone? And did you face many, or are you facing many problems with the breeding side of things?
So when Bertie came, we then increased the span because of his hunting network and relationships here in the UK. And by then we've been sending out newsletters. He started getting it out there, and we got a lot of other packs that also sort of were interested. And then we went and visited all of them, visited all their kennels.
We've had a mix, and I think the thinking partly too was good to get very different hounds from different places, because to begin with they're sort of experimental, you don't know if Old English is going to work best out there, or a bit of fell blood, or all these things. So we sort of try to get a mix from different parts of the country, and sort of see which is best suited. And also for us it's great because it gives us the link between as many different packs as possible. And so yeah, it's been an experiment, and it's been good. I mean, like everything, we've had difficulties. We've got a lot of puppies at the moment, but we have had difficulties. We've obviously in Pakistan it's harder to get all the vaccinations. Over here we all take for granted, and the veterinary care we all take for granted here isn't always accessible in lots of the places where we're based in Pakistan. So yeah, we've had issues with certain disease and things, but it's all these things that used to be a huge problem in the UK and now aren't. Lots of them still are there in that respect. But it's been good, and we've had to we've built kennels from scratch, and been able to sort of how we wanted in that respect.
And are a lot of the areas where you're hunting, are they very much more remote?
Yeah, so we move around a lot. So we start, Faisal's got the summer kennels up in Chitral, which is northern Pakistan, in the Hindu Kush mountains, so right up in the mountains. It's 9,000 feet Chitral, so it's pretty high up. So much cooler in the summer, hence they go up there. And I think the original pack used to go up there as well, so it's sort of trying to interlink how it would originally worked. It's very mountainous, very beautiful, very dramatic. And then we've got some kennels just west of Islamabad, in a place called Attock, which is again very different. It's much more arid, much rockier, and again quite a lot of space, but it starts to get more built up. And then we go even further south down to a place just north of Lahore called Nurpur, which is then completely different. It's sort of flat, arable land, very, very busy, lots of villages, lots of people, lots going on. So we're lucky, we've got a range of places to go and be, all with their pros and cons.
Can you sort of give a brief outline of, I don't know, the sort of the day?
That very, very much depends where we are in the country. So where Faisal's base originally was, I mean, you should probably say more on this, is a border area, and they very much have as part of their culture. Mounted hunting is a big thing. It's where most of the horses are bred in Pakistan. They love it. There's sometimes 50 people on horses, and it's all carnage and great fun, and all done in a very different manner to, it's not better or worse, but it's just they hunt in a very different manner to what we do over here. And so, but also the climate's very different. So, as you can imagine, it's much drier. Scenting conditions are worse, although not always. I was quite surprised how well the hounds did take to hunting a new quarry in a new place. But yeah, I normally go out very early in the morning, so I usually try and go out 6 in the morning as the sun's coming up, and then you'll be back in for a late breakfast at 10:30.
We've tried hard for it to be sort of something where it respects local traditions and culture also, because we don't want it to be perceived as sort of empire all over again and all that sort of thing. So as part of that, we started a sort of breeding and preservation program of these Aboriginal Afghan hounds, because we were thinking of how could one bring some of the sight hounds into this or not. And that's how it originally, the thought started. But then as we started learning about them, we learned that they have a very different way, but we got this program going. So we have now a sort of kennel with these Afghan hounds coming from Afghanistan, and it's trying to look at some of our local horse breeds, local things, and then even some of the way that, like Bertie's found that people decorate their horses in a very different way there, with necklaces and
oh my goodness.
There's a whole market of horse jewellery. You wouldn't believe
Is
it.
there?
So we try and put those things, incorporate those into uniforms or what just so that when people see people out, it's something that they take ownership of, because they recognize it's something a bit of their own, with a few little touches from here. So you'll have the hunt buttons and the badge, but you'll have it on a waistcoat and a turban, that sort of thing. Over here you have your hunt balls and you have subscription, all the various things. There we're sort of building up to that. Yeah. And so Bertie had this idea of, maybe this could be something of interest, of bringing people across where, they could sort of be supporting the hunt. It actually works in a couple of ways. Local people start seeing that this is actually something that's of interest to other people and it's valuable, etc. The local landowners and others who are trying to get on board, they start even seeing their thing differently. So people who were convincing to have on, after a group has come, they're like, oh wow, this is actually something. Now we see why. Because again, we assume that people know, or we also sometimes tend to think that they would understand what it all means, but they don't. So that's really helped, in that sense. And then Bertie sort of, with the seasons, figured out a couple of different pony treks, which look like not in the hunting season, in the summer when they're up in kennels. What do we do up there? Because we used to have people who come and walk out hunts, etc. And then what are things that we do during the season in some of the places? So I'll hand over to him.
So up north is where we began doing it, up in the Hindu Kush. So because of my network, most people that come out are very into their riding and hunting and all that sort of thing. So they usually land in Islamabad. All of it's easy to put an exciting trip on because actually all of it's exciting to someone from the West. And so it's a long drive north and spectacular scenery and various places to stop along the way. And then Faiysal has a beautiful house up in just north of Chitral, just north of the town of Chitral. And there, the horses are there and the hounds and the kennels and everything. And so we stay there, and then there's a huge amount to see there. You've got the local town, and people usually the first thing they want to do is get some amazing clothes made and all that sort of thing. And then what always surprises people is there's a huge culture of polo up there. So unlike in the West, where polo is very much fairly elite and you need some money and things behind you, polo up there is everyone from the local baker to the shoemaker to the local prince, they all play polo together and they all have a polo pony. We then get some ponies off the local players and some of them come along on the ride and everything, and then it's a 3 or 4 day riding trek up in the Hindu Kush, camping along the way in nice comfy camps. People are usually surprised by the setup. Along the way there are various hotels and things where after your camping things you can have a bit more of a break, and long beautiful walks, glaciers, the possibility, endless. And so we usually try for the riding. It's sort of groups between 6 and 12 is how we try and do it, because that's sort of manageable with the horses, and you need to be a fairly competent rider because they're wild but fun ponies. This is one of the Afghan hounds.
Oh, look. Hello.
This is
what So what future hopes do you have over there? What's the long-term plan ideally?
I mean, I think that there's like here, there's the challenges of development, infringing on rural areas. There's a challenge of city sensibilities finding their ways in places which are in closer proximity, to larger cities, which become sort of issueful sometimes and not the same kind of thinking. So, I mean, similar again to what you have here. Not to mention, as land holdings get smaller, people do more high-value crops and are less inclined to having, hounds and horses charging around. As long as there's a continued interest of younger people coming through as they move along, because people come for a few years and then they move on, it allows for that continuity. And hopefully things like the riding holidays and safaris could be a contributing factor to sustaining as it goes along. Otherwise, a lot of it is just being, done privately, and it depends if you find someone that does that, over the long term.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much. Great to talk to you.